unfamiliar sights and sounds in America. Protesters squaring off with police amid cries for justice after the shooting death of an unarmed black man at the hands of police.
We gather on this ground from which Daunte's blood cries out, and we gather to say enough.
20-year-old Daunte Wright killed Sunday afternoon in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, just outside Minneapolis. What was meant to be a traffic stop suddenly turning into tragedy. Police say an officer accidentally discharged her weapon while attempting to arrest him.
He was a son, he was a brother, he was an uncle, he was a father, he was a grandson, he was so much more, and he did not deserve this at all. My heart is literally broken into 1,000 pieces, and I don't know what to do or what to say. And I just need everyone to know that he was my life. He was my son. And I can never get that back. Because of a mistake, because of an accident.
As the trial for the murder of George Floyd is underway, Wright's death sparking massive demonstrations Sunday night. Protesters clashing with police, who in turn fired rubber bullets and tear gas on the crowd.
Daunte Wright! Daunte Wright!
Looters ransacked dozens of stores, with reports of several businesses in the area being, quote, completely destroyed.
More flashbang grenades.
Officials deploying more than 500 members of the National Guard in response.
Peaceful protesting, expressing yourself, we fully support that. But the ravaging of our businesses, the looting of our stores, the destruction to our pharmacies, we cannot tolerate that.
Today, police releasing this disturbing body cam video of the incident. They say Daunte Wright was initially pulled over just before 2 p.m. Sunday for expired registration on his vehicle. Officers discovering he had a warrant out for his arrest. Court records show that warrant was issued after Wright failed to appear in court earlier this month, following charges for carrying a firearm without a permit and running away from law enforcement. Police attempt to take Wright into custody. A struggle ensues as the 20-year-old tries to get back into his car. But instead of grabbing her taser, the officer instead grabs her gun and fires. The car traveling for several blocks before crashing into another vehicle. Police say paramedics attempted life-saving measures, but Wright was pronounced dead at the scene.
This appears to me, from what I viewed and the officer's reaction and distress immediately after, that this was an accidental discharge that resulted in the tragic death of Mr. Wright.
I was able to watch the video with Mr. Wright, and whenever you watch a video like that with a parent, almost everything else leaves your mind because you can just sort of absorb that pain. It's just a pain that's so unbearable that no one should ever have to experience.
Officers have to be trained consistently on de-escalation tactics, because if the young man would have gotten away, you knew who he was, you knew what type of car it was, you had the license plate.
The officer, Kim Potter, a 26-year veteran of the Brooklyn Center Police Department. She's been placed on administrative leave. The mayor of Brooklyn Center saying he supports that decision.
Our hearts are aching right now. We are in pain right now. And we recognize that this couldn't have happened at a worse time.
It would be in the best interest of the police department and the chief if this young lady was relieved of her duty. We have to start to hold our officers accountable for these types of situations.
There needs to be a complete top to bottom audit of policing in the state of Minnesota. And we need to make sure we're doing a good enough job as a state in terms of licensing officers and making sure we have officers on the street who understand, yeah, they're there to enforce the law, but they're also there to serve the community.
A traffic stop, especially for a minor violation, should not result in the death of an individual.
President Biden today calling for a full investigation.
We do know that the anger, pain, and trauma that exists in the Black community in that environment is real. It's serious and it's consequential, but it will not justify violence and or looting.
Tonight, 3 counties in the Minneapolis area under curfew, but crowds still gathering. The governor issuing a state of emergency.
Our time to get one shot at fixing it was there. And in the midst of this trial that the world's watching, the situation repeated itself yesterday.
Daunte's death happening just 15 miles from that street outside the Cup Foods where 46-year-old George Floyd died on Memorial Day last year, also during a police encounter. The trial for the former Minneapolis police officer charged in Floyd's death now entering its 3rd week.
Please, do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury?
Today, Philonise Floyd giving so-called spark of life testimony, meant to give the jury a sense of who his big brother was, remembering how he made the best banana mayonnaise sandwiches, loved basketball, and the mother he cried out for as he was dying.
He was a big mama's boy. George, he loved his mom. It was so unique how they were with each other. He would just lay up on her in the fetus position like he was still in a womb.
Not only was he impactful, but I think as important, if not more important, is he didn't venture off into testimony that would have opened up the door to the defense being able to say, oh, you think he's a peaceful person? That would have been able to allow the defense to bring in potentially prior bad acts of George Floyd. So I think this witness did a great job of walking that tightrope.
In the past few days, the prosecution has presented medical testimony about Floyd's condition in the time leading up to and after his death. Today, cardiologist Dr. Jonathan Rich testified Floyd would be alive today had he not been restrained in the way he was. The defense making the point that Floyd could have followed police commands to avoid that restraint.
So in other words, if he had gotten in the squad car, he'd be alive.
I think my answer remains the same. Anything other than that scenario that he was subjected to, I have no reason to think from a medical perspective that he would not have survived that day, correct?
Dr. Rich also testifying that he did not believe Floyd died from a heart attack or due to drug use.
I can state with a high degree of medical certainty that George Floyd did not die from a primary cardiac event, and he did not die from a drug overdose.
It'll be the truth and nothing but the truth.
On Friday, a forensic pathologist testified similarly.
What was the cause, the manner of death for Mr. George Floyd?
The cause of death was the law enforcement subdual, restraint, and compression, and the manner of death is homicide.
The medical testimony is very damning. If I went up to someone with hemophilia, the inability to clot blood properly in their system, and stab them, I can't then turn around and say, well, it was the hemophilia that killed them, not me stabbing them. And I think the prosecution is kind of turning that case of George Floyd dying into just that. You have to take him as he is, and that knee upon his neck is what caused him to die.
The prosecution is likely to rest its case in the coming days. Closing arguments are expected next week. Jurors told to pack a bag as they'll be sequestered while deliberating. For Floyd's family, closure and justice can't come soon enough.
The sheer inhumanity that was demonstrated by Derek Chauvin as he was murdering my cousin, it was just a lot to watch.
I want to believe, and I think I have to believe, that the outcome is going to be the one that we prayed for.
But in a city on edge, Daunte Wright's death, a reminder even justice doesn't promise peace.
We keep thinking, okay, now this time is going to be different, but then things keep happening. And so, for me, are there more people who are being vocal about it? There are. But could you be any more vocal than we all have been over the last year and really believe that something like this could happen again? I don't think so.
No, what's going on?
And coming up, the soldier and the routine traffic stop now sparking a nationwide reckoning of force.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.